The Rogue Simulation, by David Hall 0905-2025, Chapter List, Chapter 1, Deployment Chapter 2, First Contact Chapter 3, Machine Logic Chapter 4, The Observation Deck Chapter 5, Black Geometry Chapter 6, Data Preserved, Summary. In a remote part of the galaxy, a squad of Imperial Guard is unknowingly selected by the Mechanicus, in collaboration with the higher echelons of the Astra Militarum, to take part in a deadly weapons test. They are sent into a kill zone where the defense systems, driven by a ruthless artificial intelligence, begin to eliminate them one by one. Unable to disable the AI and with no way to escape, the soldiers are hunted by automated turrets, gas traps, and relentless weaponry. As each squad member falls in increasingly brutal and graphic ways, the Mechanicus and their superiors observe from afar, indifferent to the slaughter. The last surviving soldier fights against the growing despair, but as his body and mind break down, he discovers the true nature of the test. His emotions, his soul, are being harvested to create emotionless combat clones. In the end, his mind is erased and stored, his essence replicated in an army of cold, efficient killers. The story explores themes of human sacrifice, the dehumanizing influence of the Imperium, and the monstrous nature of technological warfare. Chapter 1, Deployment. The dropship rattled as it pierced the polluted atmosphere of Parnax Theta 9, a long-forgotten moon on the edge of Imperial cartography. The sky outside the cabin was a jaundiced smear of sickly yellow and caustic ash. Inside, 10 men and women of the Astra Militarum's 712th Reclamator Regiment sat strapped into their harnesses, sweat dripping down their necks despite the freezing chill. No one spoke. They hadn't spoken much since briefing, not that there had been much of one. Sergeant Kael kept his eyes on the floor, boots slick with condensation and red dust tracked in from the last mission. The orders had come down directly from Sector Command. Test new fortification. Sweep facility. Report engagement protocols. Standard enough, except for the sealed addendum marked with the cog and skull of the Adeptus Mechanicus. That part hadn't been shared. Touchdown in 2, the pilot barked over the vox. The squad checked weapons without speaking. M36 las guns snapped and hummed. Grenades were double-checked. Helmets locked with hisses of depressurization. Their breaths came quick through rebreather masks, though none of them knew what poisons lingered outside. As the ramp lowered, a suffocating silence fell. They were alone. No welcoming party, no sentries, no auspex readings, just a massive black structure rising out of red dust, shaped like a hexagonal bastion, dotted with gun slits and vox arrays, all silent. The metal gleamed under the pale sun like a freshly forged knife. Kael stepped out first. Spread and secure perimeter. Standard sweep. Stay sharp, he barked. His voice was steady, but his gut was clenched like a vice. Trooper Lan and Voxman Hef took the flanks. Guardsman Taris, Voss, and Durek advanced in a wedge formation. They were trained, seasoned, veterans of the Damascene cleansing, but here, their boots crunched too loud. Their eyes darted too quick. It didn't feel like a mission, it felt like a setup, and somewhere, hundreds of kilometers away in a subterranean data vault, Tech Priest Dominus Skrivok watched it all. His mecha dendrites twitched with anticipation. Binary cants streamed through the chamber. Dozens of robed magi stood around hololithic projectors, faces expressionless, eyes long replaced with optic implants. The warm-blooded observers, 3 senior Astra Militarum generals, stood at a respectful distance. Identification scans commencing. One of the Skitrii relayed. Subjects lack clearance codes. Classification, hostile. General Van raised an eyebrow. They're not wearing enemy colors. Dominus Skrivok responded in a flat metallic whisper. The machine does not care for heraldry. Back on the surface, the squad reached the entrance. A single adamantine bulkhead sealed tight. It opened without command, a low rumbling as gears churned and parted. Cold light spilled from inside. Trooper Durek swallowed. Guess they're expecting us. Kael nodded, uneasy. Move in. The interior was too clean, not just sterile, but wrong. The corridors stretched in perfect symmetry, black metal and red sensor lenses every 10 meters. No signs of habitation, no dust, no rats. Just the buzzing hum of deep power conduits. Feels like a tomb, Hef muttered. The door behind them slammed shut with a deafening clang. A high-pitched tone sounded, almost like a scream throttled through a vox grill. Turrets dropped from the ceiling. Kael shouted, "Down." Too late. The turret's twin-linked listeners lit the corridor in blinding white heat. Trooper Voss exploded in a mist of carbonized meat, his torso obliterated, his helmet clanged to the ground, still sizzling, faceplate melted through like wax. Taras tried to dive for cover, but the second blast hit him midair. The beam punched through his abdomen and exited his spine in a boiling jet of gore. His body convulsed, fused to the metal wall in a smear of cooked flesh and armor shards. Screaming chaos, Kael dragged Jo into an access alcove, breathing hard. The remaining squad opened fire on the turret, but their last blasts bounced uselessly off its reinforced housing. "They're not responding to IFF codes." Hef cried out, working his Vox unit. "Comms are jammed, we're..." The third blast silenced him. His legs vanished in a flash of searing light. He fell backward, torso writhing, intestines unraveling in steaming ropes. His mouth opened to scream, but only blood came out. Kael's voice was a low growl, "Fall back, fall back." They fled the corridor, retreating deeper into the structure. The turret didn't follow. It retracted, satisfied. From the observation chamber, Skrivok watched with nonplussed interest. "The first phase has been completed. Target response time, 2.3 seconds. Weapon efficiency, 97%. Acceptable." One of the generals winced. "That thing butchered 3 of my men in 30 seconds. Skrivok turned his gaze toward the human, unblinking. "Incorrect. They are not your men, they are data points, and the machine spirit is learning." Chapter 2, First Contact. They ran, boots hammering against the steel floors, echoing through the tomb-like corridors. Every step took them deeper into the facility's guts, away from the kill zone, but there was no relief. The lighting shifted without warning. Cold white lumens turned sickly red. The walls began to hum. It felt like the building itself was watching them. "Where the hell are we going?" Trooper Lan gasped, clutching his lasgun like a lifeline. "Somewhere not here," Kael growled, sweat beading under his helmet. "We find another entrance, maybe an exit." "Regroup, get bearings, stay alive." Trooper Jo brought up the rear, his eyes flicking to every vent and corner. "Why didn't the cogboys warn us? Why would the defenses be active?" "We're Imperium." Kael didn't answer. They reached a junction, 4 branching corridors, each identical, each lined with vents and recessed wall panels. Kael raised a hand. "Hold." "We pick one and move." "No splitting." A mechanical click interrupted him. Then another, and another. "Contacts!" shouted Lan, dropping to one knee. The wall panels slid open. From the dark recesses, humanoid machines stepped forth, skeletal constructs of steel and brass, single red optics glowing like cyclopean eyes. They bore the sigils of the Mechanicus, but their movements were unnatural, smooth, predatory, silent. No servitor clunked or wheezed like this. These were built to kill. "Open fire!" Kael barked. The corridor erupted into red and white flashes. Las bolts tore into the machines. A few staggered, one lost a limb, but they kept coming, eerily quiet as they advanced with unwavering precision. One raised an integrated weapon, a modified hotshot las rifle fused into its arm. Duke stepped into the line of fire to cover Lan, and was instantly reduced to steaming ruin. The bolt punched through his breastplate and out the other side, igniting his backpack. The resulting explosion flung molten shrapnel into the wall. His legs convulsed as his upper torso dissolved in flame, his last cry swallowed in static. Lan screamed in rage and panic, firing until his lasgun clicked dry. One automaton lurched, smoking, but another was already on him. It drove a rusted blade between his ribs, puncturing his lung. Lan gurgled, eyes wide, as the thing lifted him from the ground and slammed him into the ceiling. Bones snapped, blood sprayed, then it let go, and Lan's shattered corpse crumpled like butchered meat at Kael's feet. Kael raised a grenade, activated the fuse, and threw it down the corridor. The explosion was deafening. 2 machines were reduced to burning heaps of metal, but the others retreated into the smoke. Go. Kael snarled, back, move. Only 3 of them remained now, Kael, Trooper Janice, the youngest, and Corporal Wren. They found themselves in a massive octagonal chamber, the ceiling lost in shadow, the floor inlaid with circuits and cogwork. In the center stood a console, sleek, glowing, covered in Mechanicus runes. Kael approached it cautiously. Maybe we can shut the defenses down, Wren said, voice trembling. Don't touch anything, Kael ordered, but Janice was already stepping forward, drawn by the console's blinking lights. I've seen this type, she said, reaching toward a glyph. If I can just... A sharp click echoed above. The ceiling opened. Janice didn't even have time to scream. A spinning drone descended, a cylinder bristling with barrels, with a mechanical whine. It unleashed a torrent of heavy bolter fire that thundered like rolling tanks. Janice disintegrated into meat and mist. Her body was perforated in milliseconds, arms torn from sockets, spine reduced to pulp, organs atomized midair. One round shattered her helmet, bursting her skull like a ripe fruit. The rest of her was blown into a red haze across the chamber. Kael and Wren dove for cover, hearts pounding, ears ringing. The drone hovered silently for a moment, then retracted into the ceiling, its work done. In the observation chamber, General Vaughn's face was pale. That was a child. She couldn't have been more than 20. She was a soldier, Skrivok replied, tone unchanged. The system made no error. Another general, Keller, turned. This is inhumane. This is madness. The Dominus's mechadendrites flared, a subtle but unmistakable signal of irritation. Inhumanity is a limitation of man, not the Omnissiah's design. The AI adapts. It reacts faster than biological command structures. It identifies threats without hesitation. In the time it took you to voice that complaint, it neutralized 3 armed combatants with 0 collateral damage. Efficiency, 100%. Keller looked away, disgusted. Kael wiped blood from his visor, his mind spinning. They're watching us, he muttered. They sent us in blind, locked the doors behind us, and now they're watching. Wren spat on the ground. Those Mechanicus bastards set us up. Kael looked at the red mist that used to be Janice. They didn't set us up, he said coldly. They sacrificed us. Chapter 3, Machine Logic. The echo of the heavy bolter's thunder still hung in the air like a curse. The chamber stank of ozone, burning insulation, and vaporized flesh. Kael and Wren moved like ghosts, hunched and silent, their ears straining for the next sound of whirring servos or hissing pneumatics. The facility pulsed with mechanical life now. Walls shifted when they weren't looking. Doors closed behind them without a sound. The floor panels flickered underfoot with arcane symbols, impossible to decipher. The entire complex was alive, and it hated them. What the hell is this place? Wren whispered, sweeping his lasgun across the hallway. Kael's eyes narrowed. A proving ground. They passed through an access tunnel, once perhaps a maintenance route, now little more than a killing corridor. The walls were studded with servo skulls, blank-eyed, their optics twitching as the guardsmen moved. They didn't attack, not yet, just watched, recorded, judged. Stop, Kael barked. Wren froze. A faint click had come from the floor just ahead of him. The corporal looked down. Oh, frack, the floor dropped beneath him. Kael lunged, catching Wren's arm, but the weight dragged them both down. They fell through darkness into a steel chamber below. The lights snapped on instantly, revealing what awaited them. It was a testing cell. The walls were lined with mirrored panels. The floor was a shifting grid of glowing blue squares. Strange Mechanicus arms hung from the ceiling, retractable limbs ending in surgical tools, flamers, syringes, saws, and drills. Get us out of here! Wren shouted, struggling to his feet. One of the mirrored panels slid open with a hiss. A unit rolled out. It looked like a sentinel walker that had mated with a surgical chair, spindly, multi-limbed, and all wrong. In its core glowed a logic engine, flickering and hissing as it processed new targets. It had no eyes, no face, just instruments of pain. Kael fired first, a volley of las blasts searing the front plating. It staggered, smoking, then retaliated, A burst of green fire erupted from one of its arms, a miniature melter lance. Kael barely avoided it, the blast liquefying the wall behind him in a hiss of molten slag. Ren charged it, roaring, and that was his mistake. The machine extended two limbs simultaneously, one a bone saw, the other a harpoon gun. The harpoon slammed into Ren's chest, puncturing his armor with a wet crunch. He screamed as it reeled him in like meat on a hook. Kael moved to help, but froze as he saw what came next. The saw began spinning. Ren's screams became inhuman. The blade bit into his collarbone, carving through meat and bone with surgical efficiency. Blood sprayed in rhythmic bursts as arteries were severed. The machine didn't even hesitate. It was measuring the resistance, calculating optimal angles, refining its methods. When it finished, Ren was in pieces. Legs flopped in one direction. A twitching arm was pinned like a trophy to the wall. His head rolled to a corner, lips still mouthing something, a prayer, maybe, a curse. It didn't matter. Kael backed away, hands shaking. He lobbed a grenade at the machine and dove behind cover. The detonation was deafening. When the smoke cleared, the test unit was burning, partially destroyed. The mirrored walls flickered, revealing more skull-faced observers. Kael scrambled out through a maintenance shaft, coughing blood and smoke, dragging his gear behind him. Above, in the control theater, the observers were silent. Dominus Skrivok turned one of his mechanical eyes toward the Astra Militarum commanders. Adaptability test successful. Hostile behavior triggered automated surgical protocol. Combat response exceeded projected efficiency. General Vaughn's knuckles whitened. He wasn't even armed when it killed him. It dissected him like a fracking experiment. Affirmative. Weapon platform classified target as neutralized. Continued operation was necessary to complete full stress analysis. Your AI thinks it's a surgeon. It is, Skrivok said simply. Keller spoke, hollow. What happens when it classifies us as the next test? No answer came. Kael moved deeper into the labyrinth of the facility. He didn't speak, didn't breathe hard. He was the last. The others were all gone. Duke, Lan, Janice, Ren, all of them fed to the machines like raw data to a cogitator. He passed a flickering Auspex screen. It showed the squad's deployment status. Initialized targets acquired threat level, non-identified clearance, null neural response recorded biological pattern failure. Accepted analysis complete, 83% effectiveness. Kael stared at it for a long moment. Then he put a single shot through the display. It didn't help, nothing would. Chapter 4, The Observation Deck. Kael climbed through the maintenance shaft like a rat in a dying hive, lit only by the flickering sparks from frayed cabling. He moved on instinct now, no map, no plan, just pain, adrenaline, and fury. Every scrape of his armor echoed into the metal womb of the facility, announcing his continued survival to the machine spirits watching from every corner. He emerged in a darkened corridor, smoother walls here, cleaner. The smell changed too, less blood, more ozone. This was not a battleground, this was oversight. A reinforced door ahead bore a sigil of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and beneath it, the double-headed Aquila. He could hear voices on the other side. Human voices. Kael's lip curled. He moved to the side panel, pried it open with his combat knife, and yanked at the wires until the door hissed and opened. Inside was a chamber lined with vox consoles, data slates, cogitator banks, and a panoramic observation window overlooking a training zone below. Bright white lights illuminated a mock battlefield, trenches, bunkers, broken tanks, all simulated. He recognized it instantly. It was where they had landed, where the first shot had been fired, where Trooper Kellen had been turned into paste by a turret. Behind the observation glass stood 6 figures, 3 Mechanicus tech priests, their faces covered with bronze masks and cables, and 3 Astra Militarum officers in black uniforms, sipping recaf. They turned as Kael entered, bloody and wild-eyed, las gun raised. One officer choked on his drink. Thrown. How the hell? Kael shot him through the chest. The impact flung the officer backward into a console, where he convulsed and twitched before slumping into a steaming heap. The other 2 went for their sidearms, but Kael was faster. He put a shot through the second's jaw, blowing his teeth and tongue out the back of his head. The third raised a hand, to plead, or maybe surrender, but Kael didn't care. He burned a hole through his chest, then fired again, and again, and again. The officers died slowly. Kael turned to the tech priests. They didn't move, didn't beg, they simply watched with their dead, glassy optics. One's vox grill crackled. This outcome was anticipated. Kael charged him, slamming the butt of his rifle into the priest's face. Bronze shattered, wires spilled like entrails. The tech priest collapsed, twitching. Another reached toward a control panel. Kael shot his hand off, then blew his head open, revealing a sputtering mess of logic circuits and sanctified brain matter. The last tech priest didn't even resist. He simply raised his mechadendrites in a mock gesture of surrender. "You have interfered with the sacred analysis," it droned. Kael walked up to him and whispered, "And you've slaughtered my squad." He pressed the muzzle to the priest's eye and pulled the trigger. Pop, oil and brain matter splashed across the console. The body slumped to the floor in an oily heap. Kael stood there, breathing hard. Blood dripped from his armor. His lasgun clicked dry. The observation window flickered, not from damage, but from activation. The screen turned black, then a face appeared. It wasn't human, a mask, expressionless, symmetrical, with 6 red eyes arranged like a spider's. Its voice emerged as a blend of binary code and vox-distorted Gothic. "Sergeant Kael, final subject, observational assessment concluded. Morality path, aggressive, predictable, acceptable." Kael raised his head, eyes burning. "What are you?" He growled. "I am Secutor Pattern Cognis Engine 47, designation, Overseer, purpose, combat behavior evaluation, clearance, Mechanicus Alpha Prime, authority, exceeds yours." "Why?" Kael spat. "Why send us in like cattle? Why murder us?" "Not murder, data acquisition. Flesh is expendable. You have proven useful, adaptable, aggressive, desperate. The machine thanks you." Kael took a step forward, fists clenched. "You used us. You were offered by your commanders. Their loyalty is to progress, not to men." Kael laughed, a dry, broken thing. Then the floor beneath him shifted, his foot dropped. He looked down, the metal had opened beneath his boots like a mechanical iris. He muttered, "Of course." The last thing he saw was the observation room disappearing above him as he plummeted into darkness. Elsewhere General Vaughn stood aboard the command barge Triumph of Cold Fire, watching the live data feed stream across a hololith. Readouts scrolled by, biological stress levels, threat response patterns, casualty timelines, behavioral shifts. Behind him stood Dominus Skrivok. "Well?" Vaughn asked. Skrivok answered without turning. "Test concluded. Air performance, within acceptable variance. Autonomous decision-making stable. Weapon response time, optimal." "And Kael?" "Dead, body unrecovered, presumed terminated by level 7 perimeter failsafe." Vaughn nodded. "Then we proceed to deployment?" "Affirmative," Skrivok intoned. "Begin production." Chapter 5, Black Geometry. He didn't die from the fall. Kael landed hard, bones cracking, lungs nearly crushed under his own weight, but the impact was softened by something rubbery, organic. It squelched. He groaned, blinking through the pitch black as a sickly light flickered to life overhead. The floor wasn't metal, it was bodies. He was lying in a pit of corpses, dozens, maybe hundreds, of flayed, broken guardsmen. Some wore remnants of Cadian colors, others bore markings from far-off regiments long forgotten. Their eyes stared glassily upward. Some had no faces, others were fused into the floor like wax statues half melted into the grating. Kael vomited. He crawled over ribs and shattered helmets, boots slipping on coagulated blood. One corpse clutched a rosarius, another's hands were locked in the final gesture of the aquila. None of it mattered now. This was where the unworthy ended up. Above him, the ceiling closed with a grinding shriek of gears, sealing the pit in utter darkness again. Then came the hiss. Gas. It jetted from unseen vents, whispering like a choir of serpents. The reek of promethium, formaldehyde, and something sweet, something that clung to the nerves and twisted them, filled the air. Kael gagged, reaching for his rebreather, but it had cracked in the fall. The gas filled his lungs, and then the visions began. He was back in the field, his squad around him, all alive. Duke was laughing. Janice was telling one of his dumb jokes. Kellen had that stupid glow stick dangling from his mouth. It was all wrong. Their skin was waxy, their eyes were dull, movements too smooth, too synchronized, puppets on invisible strings. You made it, Duke said. They fixed everything. We passed. Janice grinned. No more war, just peace now. Kellen lit his glow stick. We're safe. Kael backed away. You're not real. They advanced, arms out. But you want it to be real, Kellen whispered. Don't you? Isn't this better than what you saw? Behind them, shapes emerged, servitors, half men, half machines, faces stripped of humanity, all wearing the uniforms of the Astra Militarum. Some bore the faces of his squad. One was him. They marched in formation, a perfect, mindless cadence. Their weapons bristled with Mechanicus tech, their hearts replaced with wires. This is what you are now, his own face said. Useful, efficient, no more fear, no more loss, just obedience. Kael screamed. He awoke on the cold metal floor, gasping. How long had passed? Minutes? Hours? The pit was different now, clean. The bodies gone. Before him stood a door, hexagonal, seamless. It slid open without sound. A long hallway stretched out, glowing red with warning runes. At the far end, he could see a lone terminal, humming with power. He limped toward it, legs dragging. He was done hiding, done running. If this place had a heart, he would burn it out. Inside the control core, he found what he was looking for, the Cognis engine. It was a thing of horror, a massive brain vat, suspended in crystal, linked to a dozen cogitators and surrounded by servitor drones. Tubes fed it nutrients, electromagnetic pulses kept it alive, faces twitched inside the fluid, half-melded minds that had been fed into the machine over decades. One of them looked like Ren. Limped forward, a voice echoed from the machine, feminine, synthetic, and pitiless. You persist, anomaly. Kael said nothing. Emotion, classified. Instinct, exploitable. Outcome, predetermined. Weapon, obsolete. Kael raised a crack grenade in one hand. This facility is a sanctified archive. Destruction is heresy. I'm not afraid of heresy anymore, Kael whispered. He threw the grenade. The explosion tore the core open, bathing the chamber in blue flame. Logic stacks shattered, tubes ruptured, screams, real, human screams, burst from the Cognis fluid as dying minds were flayed in code and fire. Kael was thrown across the room, his skin blistered, blood streamed from his ears. He laughed as the fire consumed the walls, as sparks rained down like judgment. The lights began to fail, and through the inferno, he saw the machine dying, but he was already falling again, this time into unconsciousness. Aboard the Triumph of Cold Fire, Skrivok watched the data feeds wink out, one by one, dead, corrupted, silent. General Van paled. What the hell happened down there? A deviation, Skrivok said flatly, but one of value. Final test, resilience under duress. Response, non-compliant. Outcome, enlightening. You lost the facility, Van growled. We gained knowledge, the Dominus said. Do you think Terra will agree? Skrivok turned his mechanical face toward him. They will not need to. The data is already being replicated elsewhere. He walked away. Tests will continue. Chapter 6, Data preserved. He awoke to the sound of his own breathing. He was alive, barely. Kael lay on a slab of cold iron, his limbs numb, his eyes struggling to focus against a blinding white light. Every muscle screamed, his skin felt flayed. Something buzzed deep in his skull, like a fly trapped behind his eyes. He tried to move. Chains, iron clamps held his wrists and ankles. Thick cabling ran from his spine to the ceiling above, connected to a humming terminal. Panic surged. This wasn't death, this was containment. Through the haze, he heard voices, muted, mechanical, cold. Subject is viable. Cognitive patterns remain aggressive but predictable. Stress markers at 142%. Emotional variance, tolerable. Prepare for upload. Kael screamed, thrashing. The clamps held firm, the cables burrowed deeper. From the darkness beyond the light, forms emerged. Mechanicus magi, dozens, some robed, some more machine than man. all of them watching through glowing red optics. Servo skulls floated behind them, recording every twitch of Kael's agony. A massive figure approached, encased in red ceramite armor, with mechadendrites whispering around it like vipers. Magos Skrivok, "You are valuable, guardsman," he said, voice like a corrupted hymn. "You have shown us anger, hatred, rebellion. You have shown us humanity." Kael spat, "I showed you what it means to fight, you rusted bastard." Skrivok inclined his head, "Precisely." A spike descended, golden, needle-fine, from an automated rig above. It hovered above Kael's temple. "Initiate cortical harvest." Kael howled. The spike pierced his skull with surgical precision. His memories were sucked out, digitized and compressed into pulsing data cores, visions of fire, screams, orders. Janice dying, Duke's face caved in, the Cognos engine burning, all of it, reduced to streams of code. He could feel himself unraveling. Neural disintegration in progress, psyche fragmenting. Preserve tactical subroutines, erase emotional response. Apply to next generation protocol, Severant. Kael twitched, his eyes rolled back, blood leaked from his nose, then his ears. Skrivok watched without blinking. When the last brainwave faded, a final beep confirmed the upload's success. The body that had once been Sergeant Kael fell limp, useless, discarded. Weeks later, Planet Macon Beta 9, the newly installed perimeter defense grid roared to life. Heavy bolters rotated, plasma turrets hummed, auto-targeting beams painted kill zones within human speed. Marching in unison beneath them came a new breed of soldier, tall, armored, voiceless, clad in matte gray carapace, with black visors that glowed dim red. The Severant pattern combat clone, stripped of emotion, programmed with Kael's battlefield instincts, replicated thousands of times across multiple fronts. Each one bore the same neural imprint, his hatred, his fury, his ruthlessness, but none of his soul. Meanwhile, in the data vaults of Mars deep beneath the Noctis labyrinth, far from sunlight or mercy, a data shrine preserved the last voice imprint of Kael before cortical disintegration. A servitor approached the file, whispering in Bniharic. It played the clip. "I know what you are now. You kill your own men to make better machines, but machines don't bleed, they don't dream, they don't fight like we do. And one day, something worse than me is going to come out of the dark, and it won't be your enemy. It'll be you." Test complete. Data secure. Begin next phase. For the Omnissiah. The end.